Okay, today is it's June 10th, I think, 2019. This is the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting for Daniel Boone. I'm Julia Olafson. We have Beverly Albright, Dr. Cooper, Mr. Hurley, Dr. Sincere Pino, Mr. Spores, and Mr. Steve Miller. And from the board, but here to observe, we have Mr. Durso. And we have a full docket today, so let's just start with our review of our comprehensive plan from Dr. Sincere Pino.
All right, so the good news is we have a full docket, but I put it all into one PowerPoint.
Woohoo!
So we wanted to take some time because this has been a lingering agenda item
Right.
for quite a while. So you will be getting, or you did get as part of your board packet, the draft of the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
So just by way of review, what does it say, what's in it, what connects to it? It is designed to be a document that guides our work moving forward. As you know, we met for 3 days. We included teachers, students, parents, administrators. Julia came for an afternoon. We had members of our community and our bus contractors also joined us for the conversation. As we were working through it, we sort of worked from like the end to backwards.
Right.
So we started with what did we want our graduates to be, and then we worked backwards from there in small groups and large groups, defined mission, vision, values, and came up with some priority focus areas for the foreseeable future. And so what we're going to do tonight is just kind of go over all of those things. So we built the plan, brought everybody in, that's what I just said, so there you go. But is designed to guide our thinking. So we ended up with this as this was rehearsal. So my picture is not as pretty as Dr. Cooper's from graduation, but you will be happy to know that they did know.
We stole it from Miss Olafson.
Okay.
Borrow.
Awesome. So we began with the end in mind, and what did we want our seniors to be when they circled up at graduation? And were they life ready? And I think that that's important because we often talk about kids being college and career ready or military ready, and really the committee felt strongly that that wasn't enough, that they wanted kids to be life ready, and hopefully be able to demonstrate what they continue to demonstrate, which is care. And so Dr. Cooper very creatively rearranged the attributes of a graduate so that they spell care. So if you notice going down the side, it spells care. And then the other attributes were what the committee came up with as what we want our graduates to be when they walk out of our stadium after graduation. And so we want them to be able to contribute to their community, we want them to be resilient, we want them to advocate for themselves and others, and obviously we want them to effectively communicate. And while that looks pretty simple, it was a pretty long conversation about how do we get kids life ready and what does it mean to be life ready and hopefully independent. The parents were pretty strong that they didn't want them living in their basements forever, that they wanted them to kind of move out and do their own thing. So from there we went to the mission statement, and you may remember from the previous comprehensive plan that the mission statement was like 3 paragraphs long. So nobody can remember the 3-paragraph long mission statement. So this is a mission statement for the district moving forward. We think it sends a clear message about what we believe in and what we take pride in. But I do want everybody to know that this was hard work. When people invest time in coming up with a mission statement, they become very connected to their words that they've chosen. And one of the best conversations I think that we had in this was that really wanting mission and vision, which we put on walls, to be accessible to our students, whether they were 5 or whether they were 18 and ready to walk out the door. We had a real long conversation about what does accessible mean. And so at the end of the day, this was where we landed and believe really strongly that all of our students can read this, well, or have it read to them, and know what it means, and that we can add layers of depth to it for our students as they go through the channels. So you'll see that concept of accessible throughout the whole piece. We ended up with this as our vision statement. learning together and advocating for all. If our graduates are going to care, then that means that they model, that they advocate for the community, and that's something that came out really strongly. But again, they wanted it to be accessible to all of our kids, whether they were our youngest learners or our oldest learners, and we feel like this is something that all of our students can know what it means and understand what it means at their particular developmental level. And then we also talked about that learning was bigger than just school. So that idea of learning together, meaning all of us as a whole community. So that's where we landed with vision. And you're going to see how this kind of all ties together here. Because people are really, really connected to the words they choose when they write their vision statements and mission statements, these words really came out across groups, and therefore they became values. So we really had a strong conversation around what of the words that we've got put up on the board are value statements versus mission, vision kinds of statements. We had a real long conversation around, is problem solving enough anymore? Or do our kids need to be critical thinkers? And we kind of landed on, well, they have to be both. You have to be able to solve a problem, but you also have to be able to take all of that information that's coming at you and think about it critically and figure out what has value, maybe what doesn't have value. Our students were very clear that they thought we should celebrate successes. And they started kind of there, that we should celebrate, and then they worked their way back to, but we want you to be specific about what you celebrate. Don't just celebrate me in general. Make sure you give me some recognition for something specific. So obviously communication and collaboration, acceptance and respect that go along with those mission and vision. So you can kind of see how they all started to flow together. From there, and these are not actually requirements necessarily of the process, but if you're going to use this document to guide you moving forward, then you need some priority focus areas. So the areas that came out from the group were competitive curriculum, the idea of continual learning, which started out as professional development but grew into this continual learning because, again, back to that idea of learning as a community. Professional development sounds very school-based versus continual learning as a community. We talked a lot about cultural investment, and we spun that around a couple of different ways. Health and safety obviously are important, and then anything that we do comes back to how do we spend the resources to do that, whether it's financial resources or whether it's human resources. So this plan then becomes our GPS, right? It would be a roadmap 30 years ago, but now it can be a GPS. And it becomes what guides our conversations. So if we have something that comes up because we know life happens, right? And it's like when you're on the road, suddenly there's a detour. Well, if we end up with a detour, we now have a plan that actually helps us figure out the way around that detour without changing our priorities and our focus areas. So that's what this becomes. So I broke out for you the curriculum, the 5 focus areas, and then we'll talk about how all the other pieces of the agenda actually fall into these five areas. So competitive curriculum is the first thing that came up. Lots and lots of conversations about what does that mean, what does it look like. But through this comprehensive planning cycle, we know that we need to map the existing curriculum, and probably even before we do that, we need to take a look at it, review it, rewrite it, prioritize what we're looking at and what we're doing first. And then we're also beginning the conversation around beginning our own virtual academy. So that actually is an agenda item. So where are we with that right now is that we have met with 2 vendors. I have appointments to meet with 2 more this week. And really looking to have something flushed out and ready to roll out in that 2021 school year, so that our students who are currently out taking advantage of other options that cost us dollars, we have an option to bring them back into our own system where they can participate fully as a Daniel Boone student, which those students who leave us to go participate in those options right now don't have the ability to do. So they would be able to be on the sports teams, they'd be able to be in the band, the chorus, the play, whatever they wanted to be, they'd be a Boone student. And then we know that as part of this, we need to really look at that MTSS structure. And so that's that multi-tiered system of support structure that we've been talking about, particularly at the high school. Erin can jump in if I'm wrong, but they are prepared at the high school to roll out the MTSS model in the fall. So our students will have opportunities to have supports, enrichment. They'll have some opportunities for co-teaching. There's a professional development piece that's already sort of started on that, which we need to circle back around to a little bit. But the high school schedule has been built so that next year there will be a flex period and students will have that multi-tiered system of support within that system. So those are kind of all things that have been spinning around in the waters and now have a plan and are linked directly back to that focus area. The next piece is that continual learning piece, and that includes everything that's up there and probably more, right? So, and I started with professional development at the top of the circle because it's a circle, so in no particular order, but professional development was something that came up in Dr. Cooper's entry plan consistently across groups, and so we know that that's definitely a priority area, and certainly it fits back to that learning together piece of this. So there will be traditional professional development opportunities. We're beginning some of those, the planning for some of those. We've also talked about how do we do with our teachers, well, how do we take what we do with our teachers and bring it out into the community? And part of the conversation around comprehensive planning was that we don't, like our neighbors, have some sort of like community education piece. And so really a link to that continual learning being how do we pull that idea of learning together into the community and bring it out there. So that piece sits there, needs to be fleshed out a little bit. We've taken new teacher induction and we've turned it into a 3-year program. So all teachers who are new to us, whether they're new to teaching or just new to Daniel Boone, will do the first year of that program. And then teachers who are new to teaching, period, will continue into year 2 and year 3. And you're going to see that we've a little bit changed how we're doing mentors, and we'll come back around to that, but really tiering that new teacher induction program to provide support all the way through the first 3 years of teachers being here with, more support at the front end, less support at the back end kind of piece. We've added a differentiated supervision model. I believe that's come through the committee also. It has different pieces to it depending again on the amount of support that folks need. So that piece will be there. That will roll out in the 1920 school year. And again, linked to Danielson, so it will all link back. Mm-hmm. We talked about that frontline program here too. Mm-hmm. That's another piece along with the professional development, new teacher induction. All of that will be kind of housed in that. New
teacher induction, are we ready to roll that out next year?
We rolled it out this year.
Yeah, and so we're, but that last piece that you were just talking about, that's not ready to go for another year.
The year 2 piece?
Yeah.
We're having a conversation.
Okay. I know that we have some new teacher induction on the agenda. Are we going to be discussing any of those issues then, or is it still?
Well, new teacher happened this year.
Right.
But moving into next year, we'll add that second year.
Got it.
And then the following year, add the third year.
Got it.
This year, induction was really a catch-up. So we caught everybody who was new this year. And then there were some folks who have been new to us but didn't get kind of a...
That's what I was kind of wondering, like those folks that have been here for 2 years starting this year, are you kind of going through their their file, like seeing what might have been missed?
Well, and really just seeing how long have they been here.
Got it.
There have been a couple of people who've been here like really almost 3 years.
Right.
And so
right.
Just having that conversation around who...
And that's more individual, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Got it.
So,
okay.
Kind of taking that list and looking at
I didn't mean to mess with your flow.
No, you're fine. So does that make sense though?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
But starting next year, if you do year 1, you'll do year 2, you'll do year 2.
Sure.
So we'll kind of pull that through. So differentiated supervision has 5 tracks to it, basically. It has a track that's sort of your typical clinical supervision piece that will be a piece that everybody participates in every 3 years. It has 3 different options for differentiation, all of which are really designed around the action research theory. It has a really structured supervision piece for folks who may be struggling that includes that performance improvement plan piece, all of that. And then it has another piece on the front end until folks get tenure, which will link back into induction. So some of the elements of induction will also be part of that differentiated supervision piece. So kind of to do all of this, right, and to grow our leaders from within our ranks and give people a chance to grow, there are a couple of places and spaces where where attrition has allowed us to kind of rework people and what they're doing. So we will have academic coordinators, 2 of them, a K-5 person and a 6-12 person. And they will be the people who are kind of the middle ground between Mr. McKnight's office up here and boots on the ground. So they'll still be in the classroom, they'll still be teachers, so what's going on that needs to kind of push up. And they'll be like the big picture people. And then there's another layer to that, which is like in the land of old school, used to be grade level chair people or department chair people.
Yeah.
And those folks are the liaison between kind of their colleagues right around them and those academic leaders. So those pieces will fall into place with a new contract, because we're sitting in status quo right now.
Right.
So those positions that they will become still exist until we get to a place where we can change that.
Okay.
The next piece that kind of goes around to that is the learning coaches and their mentors. So let's start with mentors. We changed the structure of mentors a little bit. Typically, we had assigned 1 mentor to 1 new teacher. Mentoring will, moving forward, look like 8 district-wide mentors rather than specific to a person. So those 8 district-wide mentors will support equitably. So 8, if suddenly we have 16 new teachers in the building, then perhaps 4 of those people go to that building. So we'll distribute them equitably across buildings, but kind of thinking of a model where you've got maybe 2 at the high school, 1 at each of the other buildings, and then 2 specialists. So maybe they're special ed, maybe they're guidance, maybe they're music, just kind of depending on what you need. They will support multiple teachers, and then they'll attend all of the meetings and trainings that go with them. And if there's, go ahead.
They
I know.
compensated per
They're getting compensated
person they're assigned to?
as a group, and then if they have more than a specific number, they get more money.
So they could have no one.
They could have no. So if they have no one, right? If they have no one, then they're going to be responsible for the short-term, long-term subs. So like maybe somebody who's there for a maternity leave, but they don't.
Because 16 seems like,
No.
or 8 seems like a lot.
Yeah. Well, so it's.
Because, I mean, do we really get that many new teachers here?
I think we'll see. I don't. We toss it around.
With this,
I mean, we usually
Yeah.
we work through attrition and then don't have anyone new. So what, I mean, I just think 8's a lot.
Right. In that case, we would have a situation where if we don't get any hires, if we have 2 hires, well, you know, those mentors are on a yearly basis, it's a year thing, so they won't be assigned.
Okay.
Just like any other year, if we want to have the appropriate number of mentors,
Right.
and just we want to fill that mentor slot.
And we also know that sometimes you have a new teacher that needs that mentor a little longer than that first year, so those people could support there also. And the last piece of that is the learning coaches piece. So the learning coaches, there's 5. Yeah, there's 5. They are super excited to start. So we've hired a learning coach at the high school who's a half-time learning coach. That's Laura Bittler. We have a full-time person at both the intermediate center and the primary center, Ange Owens and Bonnie Blatt. And then we will still have Tracy Driehaus as a half-time person for technology, and we will still have Michelle Maynard serving in that capacity for special ed. We pulled them together last week and met with them a little bit about what are you doing. So their primary function is to support instructional growth among their colleagues. They're not supervisory in any way, so it's not their job to go in and say, I saw this and you should do this. Their job is just to go in and be supportive of their colleagues. They can support teachers where teachers have identified that they need help. They can support teachers in ways that an administrator has suggested they reach out. So an administrator is not going to go to a coach and say, go help Julia with that. The administrator would go to Julia and say, hey, I think you should work on this. Beverly is the learning coach and she might be a really good resource for you. So totally teacher to teacher without the administrator directing the coach to go to someone's room so that it doesn't become punitive.
So they're giving up their teaching positions to take the learning coach position?
They are. They will remain teachers on the teacher contract.
Really?
Yep. So, and again, it's an attrition.
Science.
And that's, so you said Mrs. Bittler is going to be doing that at the,
Yeah, but she's only half-time.
okay.
What's the other half?
Is,
Teaching the other
yeah. So she'll still be teaching?
Right,
Good.
because you can't, there
'Cause-
wasn't room in high school schedule to free her up.
She's a very good AP biology teacher. Okay.
Well,
No, I
okay,
know.
but
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
some selective, in the
I
high school, there's
understand.
some select.
So the
Positions.
two high school positions are half-time.
Both half-time at the high school.
Okay.
For at least for this year,
Okay.
because there wasn't enough space in the schedule to free them up.
attack.
Yeah, me too. I had we're recovering over here.
Good now?
Yeah.
On a note on the AP bio, we were able to free up one of the science teachers to start coordinating with her, so there can be some cross-training with her on the AP bio course. So when we bring that person in, it's not just new to them.
With another, and I'm glad because off topic, but I'm sorry, but I had brought up with Mr. McKnight and Mr. Hurley that in another discipline that wasn't done when somebody retired, and it created problems at the upper level, and so I'm glad to hear that that's happening. So
Okay.
So they are also going to be responsible for leading some PLCs, so some small learning community professional development. They'll be responsible for supporting new teacher induction. They can do some walkthroughs,
okay.
those kinds of pieces and parts. So they are really, really excited and kind of chomping at the bit.
Okay.
So they've all reached out to their faculty, they're ready. So that all kind of falls in that continual learning piece. The cultural investment piece is really about how do we move forward, right? How do we take everything we've learned and move forward? So the first piece, and this is really another piece that came out really strongly in Dr. Cooper's entry plan, but then
Right.
also came out really strongly in the conversation around comprehensive planning.
Mm-hmm.
So really, in 1920, this is a focus. Professional development, moving into that August timeframe, is going to that. So I'm going to go back because my things are not necessarily in order. But let's start with opening day, which is August 20th. We have asked everyone to be present for opening day. So we've asked our contractors to schedule their people so that they are there at that 8 o'clock meeting. We've asked our principals to begin communicating that buildings will not open that day until 10:30 so that secretaries can be there. Really, that opening day is an opportunity to deliver the message, learning together, advocating for all, to everybody who interacts with our kids. And then one of the really cool things that happened was that Palters, who's our landscaping company, said that they would support t-shirts for everybody. So for the very first student day of school, again, everybody who comes in contact with our kids will all have the same shirt with the new vision and mission on them. So bus drivers, custodians, security, cafeteria, everybody. So kind of that common message delivered to everybody, from everybody. And actually, in conversation with John Coakley from Klein, and Klein is even going to put that vision statement in the window of their buses, so that when they're picking up the unwelcome kids or they're just driving around, that vision statement is out there. They're traveling billboards, so we might as well use them to our advantage. We're also going to do some work around growth mindset and the work of Maui Azadon, who I always say wrong, but really his work is around the power of adults in kids' lives. And as I was kind of working on that today, I was like, oh, I love it when all the pieces fall together. So it really is going to tie nicely to some of the other work that we're doing. And it's also a piece, and while his book is called The 5 Powers of Educators, it's one of those books that you can pull out the word educator and put in parent, put in bus driver, put in grandma, put in nice neighbor who lives next door, like really just any grown-up. And so that'll be kind of the focus of that work, along with the bullet that's next to it, which is the Anti-Defamation League piece. So we will be working with them, with all of our grown-ups in the district, 13th, and then the 21st and 22nd. And they're going to come in and do some work around how our own life experiences impact how we respond to situations in front of us. And it ties in really nicely with that growth mindset piece. We've also agreed to participate in a study of the No Place for Hate program, which is their signature program for students, creating an inclusive environment. We had asked to be put on the waiting list and then discovered that the waiting list is quite a lengthy little
Yeah, we discussed that last time. So they have some sort of pilot program based on it?
So what they have is no data that proves that their program works. And so they've contracted with an agency. They have gut data that says, we think it works, but they don't have any concrete, quantifiable data.
I see.
And you're writing grants and you're writing,
Yeah.
you need that. So they have contracted with an agency to do a survey where you will either be in a study group or actually in the No Place for Hate. They will do some beginning, middle, end surveys, whether you're in the study group or whether you're in the actual group. And it guarantees us that if it's not this year that we get to participate in the program, it's next year. So it gets us off the waiting list a little faster. There are some advantages actually to being in the second group. There's some training that they're going to provide for people in the first group as kind of a bonus for being willing to be in the non-study group.
Right.
So we're excited to do that. It gets it in the hands of our kids faster than it would have otherwise, and it ties it up nicely with the ADL training that the adults are doing as well.
And we're still in talks with them. Is it certain for next year at this point?
I don't know if we've been chosen to be a
I see.
participating school
So-
or we're going to be a control group.
Got it. Okay.
But no matter what, we'll get the survey data.
Right.
So there are some real advantages either way.
And instead of being put on the waiting list for an undefined amount of time, even if we don't take part this year because we're in the study group but not using the program, in 2021, I guess?
21, 22.
21, 22, we'd be
Yeah.
able to do it? Okay. All right.
So that was the decision to do that. One of the other conversations that came up, and so I put it up there, was the new website. So the parents were really adamant that the website was hard to navigate. And I don't think anybody in the room disagreed with them. And so Scott has been working really diligently to get the new website designed and up and running. And one of the pieces that the community members, not just parents, said was, well, we'd love to help, but we don't know how to help. And so part of that new website will also be hey, how can we help? And Aaron had a really good example that he ran around like a crazy person trying to get everybody to put something on their electronic signs to say congratulations class of 2019. But we're hoping with the new website that something as simple as that can just go up there as here's a way you can help. Graduation is June 7th. Could you put up from 7 p.m. till midnight or 7 a.m. till midnight?
Yep.
So that piece is there also. But really, so really all about culture and climate and kind
Community involvement.
Yep, and community building. So that advocating for all piece. Obviously, health and safety. Another piece of that health and safety piece is the school counseling coordinator. He is like those K to 5, 6 to 12 academic coordinators. Only that person is responsible for all things school counseling. So the Act 339 falls there. Any suicide information falls there. Internships fall there. All of those pieces and parts of school counseling fall there. Middle school is fully involved with Oveus. We've got the materials in the hands of the counselors at the primary and intermediate center, and I know they've been tasked to get that done this year. So again, that school counseling coordinator can support getting that program up and running there as well. The No Place for Hate study we just talked about. We've done a lot of talking with our bus contractors in particular about you're the first person kids see in the morning and the last person they see in the afternoon. So how do we help to make the bus a positive place too? And so part of that opening day, August 20th, is the bus drivers are coming to hear the message, but then they're staying, and we're doing some of that 5 hours work with them as well. So not just know your bus route, but hey, maybe when you write bus referral, we can know the kid's name. So, and you can know that student's name. So about relationship building. SEL, the PACE survey, PBIS also fall there. So we had the SEL committee presented to the board. Their work continues. Some of them are going to a conference this summer to continue that work as part of the wellness grant from the foundation. The PACE survey certainly will give us information around health and safety issues. And then Melanie has done a really nice job of implementing a performance behavior support system. And so we're working to get that to the intermediate center, and then also we roll that out to buses. We had a little bit of success with that this year, getting it on some of the buses. So can we get it back out there? And then I think a lot of that stuff we do really well, and so that community or communication piece becomes important. One of the moms was like, I didn't even know you did all of that. And so that communication out piece to what are we doing becomes important. And then obviously all of that comes back to resources. So we talked about the human resource side of it and how do we repurpose positions as instead of just setting them aside, can we use them in a way that supports kids differently perhaps? And then always having the conversation, okay, if we do that, what priority focus area does it meet and how? And so one of the things that you'll start to see on agendas and things like that is how does this which comprehensive focus plan does this activity link to? So that there's always a connection back to this plan. And that it continues to become the roadmap for going forward. So there you go. There's your entire curriculum and instruction agenda in one PowerPoint. Did I get everything on the agenda?
No, just with the pays is the only thing that isn't on there. We'll discuss that separately, but that is everything else. Let me ask just a logistics question. I'm thinking that this is item V on the under like 6V on the regular school.
On
the committee of the whole agenda. It's listed as to approve. So I thought that we had to put this out for comment.
You have to approve putting it out.
Okay, so the plan is on the part of is going to be part of the public agenda for the committee of the whole and the draft, and for the voting meeting on the 17th, and we will vote to make it available for 30-day, 45-day comment period. 30-day comment period.
But it's going to end up being longer
because of the way we don't.
Priority here, not the ASDI plan that does not.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Correct. Yeah, I know. We commented on that. This is the full just the stuff under item V 6V on the voting meeting, that which is like listed as attachment 17.
6, 7, yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay, and I just want to be able to explain when we get to the next meeting okay, what they're approving.
Yeah.
The requirement is after we vote to put it out to draft, it'll be available on our website, and we'll accept comment, and the process for making comments will be made clear in that statement. Yeah, so 30 days is what is required, although we won't vote on it again until the voting meeting in August, I'm assuming. Correct. I just want to be sure that I know what I'm saying we're doing. Okay.
And then that way we can send it off to TV and, yeah.
I've only briefly reviewed the item for draft that was attached to the. Yeah, I know. I've only briefly looked at it, either based on the PowerPoint or based on the document itself. Do any other board members have questions to ask at this point?
No.
Yeah, same. Do anybody in the audience have a question about that comprehensive plan at the moment? Okay, so we're ready to vote on that at the committee of the whole to send the draft out for comment, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So next thing we're going to talk about is the youth survey. I don't know if anybody here is interested. I printed out a copy of the 2017 Berks County Youth Survey. If anybody's interested in looking at it. I have had, through reading through the 2017 specific youth survey, Berks County specific, both the prologue and all the documentation that goes with it, I felt that my questions were answered about how the process goes. Do any of the board, let's start with that. Do any of you have any concerns or comments about the way it works?
No.
The previous, like in 2013, I believe, was last year we took part, or did we take part last time in 2011? And then 13. Yeah, they're odd numbered years. So last year we took part was 2013. So sometime in between that and 2015, we pulled out of it. My understanding at the time was that the concerns were about privacy and some of the perceived invasiveness of some of the questions that are asked. I looked everywhere on the internet to see if there was ever an instance since 1989, when this went into effect, that there was any data breach of student information, and I couldn't find one. I looked, the data itself, the answers to the questions aren't ever private, because that's part of the data that's, it's not given in a, this one student said X, it was this, the people in this class in this grade level at this school versus the people in the whole county versus people in the whole state said X. A certain percentage of them said that. I don't have a concern that the way that they run the process, if there is, it's spelled out pretty detailed that there is no student name attached to the information that's given. We can either approve this as we could either approve it as that the students are all told that this is what's going to happen, and if parents don't want their kids to take part, parents come forward, and say, I don't want my kid to take part, and they sign something. Or we tell the parents, if you want your kids to take part, you have to sign something. We can do it either way. Most of the schools that take part do it the first way. But I'm just saying that the documentation said that they offer you the option to do it either way. In addition to that, if a student's parent says it's okay for them to do it, but they still don't want to answer the questions, they can hand in a blank document or just push submit, and with nothing answered, and there's no harm, no foul.
So they can choose to answer some questions.
They don't have to answer every single question. I don't see a problem with taking part. Do you have any?
No.
I mean, those were the things that I had been told, and through listening to the previous committee and curriculum and instruction committee meetings, all those things I just laid out were the concerns that had been brought up, and I don't think they're well founded in the way that they gather the information, the way they don't attach anybody's answers to a student, just that it's from that particular grade. If they do it on paper, the kids answer all the questions, they fold it up, and they put it in a sealed envelope before they even hand it to their teacher. Their teacher doesn't, there's no like, oh, that looks like Joey's handwriting, and this is what they said. There's none of that. So, I don't know if our audience members are here to talk to us about that or to learn about that process, but if you are, if there's anything that we haven't addressed in talking about it, were there any comments or concerns that you guys had?
They're here to listen.
Okay. And so I just wanted to be sure that, because I feel like I enumerated the things that were concerns in 2014-15. And there was one other thing that I thought I should let you know. When this was presented to us, Mr. McKnight had said that if we take part, there could be grant money available to us. And I just wanted to express that from reading stuff on the website for the PAYS survey, for the survey itself, he's right technically. The way it works is that there's very often grant money either offered nationally, statewide, or countywide that a school might be able to apply for it if they have a demonstrated need in their school district. So taking part in this PAYS survey and getting our individual survey results, it's a nationally recognized rigorous survey, and that would be our way to demonstrate that we maybe need some help curbing vaping, or dealing with a bullying situation, or whatever the case may be, because this is a broad-ranging survey of concerns at the middle school and high school level. So it was brought up by another board member who asked me to at least look into how that works, and that's how that works. So
there. Crystal clear about one thing, because it is another day among many days.
Correct.
Doesn't mean it's no guarantee that we're going to be able to get a competitive.
Not at all.
Competing against the Philadelphia area school district who can demonstrate humongous legal and those types of things.
Correct,
Absolutely, potentially.
And it is one data point. There are definitely many ways to demonstrate you have a need. It's just it's one. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out because it was actually Mr. Rathgeb who had asked how would that work, and I found out. So. Are we ready to? I would like to recommend to the board, the full board, that we go forward with that. Do we agree on that? Yeah. Is there a line item already in here? So then we will have to add it.
We'd have to add it under your report.
I will request the edit at the beginning of the meeting. I believe we, at the last meeting, we took it off. And so I will make sure it goes back on, because I was told that if we go forward, we need to get it moving. We can't just go in August. Okay? Fair enough? That covered everything else
Except ATSI.
except ATSI.
I thought you talked about ATS.
I just said that we're
Briefly,
doing
Yeah,
it.
and this has been presented to you guys a couple times.
Correct.
So ASTI is the high schools and school improvement as a result of the poor special education scores, and the ATSI thing that is located in the Cal for approval, that's what we're going to do. It contains the plan that the district and the committee have been working on for probably about since January, putting that together. It's a state we're required to do this because of our test scores in special education. It's targeted in that it's not a comprehensive school situation, but it's a targeted subgroup of students that didn't perform well on the Keystone exams. It was a composite score of math and ELA, and also, believe it or not, when it's disaggregated with attendance, although we found out that was the problem with our student information system.
Oh, really?
That was so that was actually the data wasn't feeding correctly in the state system, and that's actually been resolved already. So that won't be an issue. But the composite score of ELA keystones and math keystones over a 2-year period caused that. That's our plan. Is discussed pretty extensively with the MTSS portion, and then also fine tuning and making sure that our curriculum is in line as tight as possible with the academic standards. Those two issues are the focus of the ATSI improvement plan. It also includes some integration and some things that we're doing there also. But that's the essence. I know it's been talked about here quite a bit, but that's 2 minutes.
And just so when we talk about it in the next meeting, I know we're talking, it's the one listed under 9A, attachment number 20.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. All right. Anything else? Anything else from our audience members? All right, so we will adjourn. It is 6:52.